is. So one has to look what is the best one. You have to make a choice which to go with first. It's not a pick and choose. It's which one is easier to get a prosecution and conviction on. So that is part of the process which holds some important cases behind. Okay. The truth of the matter is some cases which you think are not important in a particular case, if you had prosecuted them then without the bigger cases, a smaller case, the impact you might have made would have been bigger than going after the big case with a lot of resources. For example...
No, I agree with the principle.
Yeah.
It's fine, thank you. I'd like to move on to my next question.
Sorry about that.
Mr. Patlani was appointed by former President Zuma to serve as the acting national commissioner. His appointment came at the height of state capture. In your opinion, and based on your investigations as the head of IPID, did Patlani fight crime and corruption as he was mandated to do? Or did he use his position to enrich himself?
So, no, I didn't see any evidence of that. I didn't see any evidence of that.
Of what?
Of him being committed to fighting crime and make an impact. In my opinion, and maybe that's my memory after many years, is that he was mainly interested in his tenders. Someone just phoned me now from the crime laboratories who are working there. There's an instance when there was a process of fiscal dumping after the year end was closed. So what is fiscal dumping is when people haven't used their expenditure properly, and the last quarter they just buy or anything that is there, even if it's not a priority or needed, because they failed to do it consistently during the year. But in this particular case, it's the strangest one. It was for some lights, like an ultraviolet type of light, which was manufactured in Australia. And the order was generated at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on 31st of March. I think could be 2018, I'm not sure of the year. And within 2 hours, before midnight, the 54 million was paid. So the stuff would have to be manufactured, come from Australia, delivered, and then that 54,000 would be paid. Now that's the most weirdest case of fiscal dumping. It's pure corruption. I don't know why it's not. I've mentioned it to Parliament before. I mentioned it to Parliament in Portfolio Committee, and I mentioned it to SCOPA also. So those are matters which are kind of clear-cut matters, even if you come from purely an auditing side. So what happens is that because all the payments get lined up at the end of the year, the end of the month, at the end of the year, the payment reflects on 1st of April or 2nd of April. So it looks like it's in a new financial year. So the trick they use, because there are so many payments that need to be made, electronically they're all lined up. So you look for it, you search for the end of, 25-26 financial year, and you won't find that payment there. So it looks like it's a false allegation. But if you check in 26-27, one of your first payments there, you'll see it's the fiscal dumping. So there's all these tricks people have learned over time.
Yes, but the prosecution is surely aware of those tricks. So those cases should not be hard to do.
Yeah, they're aware of it, but I don't know how far the prosecution is here.
Okay. Then the case opened by Paul O'Sullivan against Mr. Patlani. It involved exhibits going missing from the forensic lab stores. There was reference to cocaine. Rana Horn, are you familiar with this matter?
Yeah, I think it's either Moonsami or Pop Crew who made the complaint, yeah.
Yes. And do you know what's happened to that matter?
No, I'm not sure what happened to. I know there was a key person who had been placed there to facilitate whatever must be done. And as soon as the investigations were done, there was a female officer, brigadier, suddenly disappeared from from the forensic crime lab. I can't remember the name of the lady. Yeah?
the case? Do you know what's happened to that? Hasn't gone anywhere?
No, I don't have an idea, ma'am.
Earlier today, you mentioned that part of all the problems that you experienced started off with the investigation of one Mr. Toshan Pandey. Can you expand on that, please?
Yeah, so at a certain stage, the matter was handed over to us because it involved police officers involved. And the KZN DPCI was being targeted because they were investigating that matter. And that matter was linked to a lot of important people who had links to even more important people. In any event, it's about corruption and false accommodation during FIFA World Cup 2010, at which time former Minister Bheki Cele was the National Commissioner at that stage, which is the one involves Pandey, Ngobeni, I think someone called Mado, and one or two others. Yeah. I remember at that stage, they had tried to bribe Johan Boysen, who was the head of Hawks, with 2 million. But unbeknown to the bribers, he set them up, and there was a letter inside the money bag. And when the guy arrived with the money, after Boysen having, I think it's called a 252A, I think that's what it's called, with cameras, with recordings and everything. They picked up that the envelope with the letter in and dusted it for fingerprints. They found out Toshan Pandey's fingerprint is on there. So it's clear that he was associated with the 2 million bribe, and his go between, I think, was Madu. And I think those cases are on at them, I'm not sure, but those cases were handed to us. So we inherited for forensic people, and we submitted. We tried to get it so many times on the roll, and so many times it was kicked off. But I think it went on the roll. For some reason, I think Pandey is on the roll, but Pandey is on the roll also for tax evasion or something. A number of cases.
For what reason would a case be kicked off the roll several times?
I'm not sure. At least I know on one occasion, Commissioner Ria Piecha tried to stop the investigation, and Lieutenant General Tramat, as head of Hawks, countered that but said, go ahead with the investigation. The investigation has merit, go ahead. So that might be also a reason why it was targeted. The DPCI and Tramat were targeted because Tramat gave the order as a national head to continue with the investigation. So those are the links. The links inevitably, on that matter, even though we took it over, and I'm sure it's with IDEC or something now, or back to DPCI, I'm not sure. It started with that issue when former Minister Bheki Cele was National Commissioner.
Okay. And that's fine, thank you. You'll agree with me, I'm sure, that crime intelligence is a vital aspect of fighting crime, and more particularly corruption, racketeering, those types of crimes.
Indeed.
Now, crime intelligence today is really almost non-existent. It's in a huge mess. Some of them have been arrested, some more than once. The IGI has been suspended. The head of the National Prosecuting Authority is under constant attack. The head of IDEC also under attack. What are your thoughts on these issues? Briefly, please.
Well, Well, firstly, my view is that there should be an independent vetting, a security vetting, and integrity testing agency, separate, not under crime intelligence, not under state security, but that deals with the two aspects, integrity testing and security vetting. Now, the difference between the two is security vetting every 5 years. And mostly it's there to test whether you are selling your country out. And integrity testing is really to check whether you're a thief or will do improper things. Now, the two are very different. The one you can do anytime, or at least once a year, or as a pre-employment screening. My own view is that they should be together. You can't do one or the other because you will find a person with purported integrity on the scores is also selling his country out. And you'll find out an honest person who doesn't have a preponderance to steal might be selling his country out. But you'll find someone who's not selling his country out who's a thief. So you've got to weigh this up. And also the person that walks into a job at a particular time, it says as clear as water. Within 5 years, that's not the same guy. That guy's been contaminated by the environment. So you have to do it regularly to keep the integrity up and security vetting up, because that's happening all the time. It's happening all the time. So you need to do it and do it. But if you are under a particular ministry, the ministry will interfere with you. In some, we've seen two, I don't know what the reason was, two inspector generals having their clearance withdrawn. Clearance is a game they play with. I remember Becky Cleary jumping up and down in Parliament about he doesn't have a security clearance, whereas he interfered with the process of me renewing my security clearance. And yet he employed my successor without a security clearance. So that's the game. It's an abuse of the security clearance issue. But if you have a dedicated agency that's independent, you can get the stuff done.
Okay, so talking about your security clearance and the fact that you were removed, while you were suspended at IPRA, many cases were closed. I think it's reported that it was over 1,500 cases were closed while you were on suspension. For example, gang rapes by SAPS members, very big, important matters were closed. When you returned, how many of these cases were reinstated?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I would imagine that Mr. Sissoko and his team would, in fact, I do remember they were dealing with identifying what was fiddled with and what can be put back on the investigation table. So I remember him doing that process, yeah.
Do you have any recollection of the numbers?
No, I don't. I don't have the numbers. I just know it was done, and I know it was significant enough to disrupt the normal flow of events.
My final question, Mr. McBride, and I want a very brief answer, please. 3 things that we can do that will limit or stop political interference in the criminal justice structure.
Well, politicians to know the lines. Also politicians, and we had started writing a document in the place where I work about proximity to especially new members of parliament, how people will come around them, suggest issues to them, entice them, and try to control them. Initially, it'll be something simple, you buy your wife a gift or your husband a gift, but slowly it's a golf day, it's something, but slowly you see you spending more time with the guy. But the guy has an agenda. He's a service provider and he has an agenda. So I didn't finish that article. Some internal matters happened there. So I was writing that mainly for members of parliament to understand, especially under the new GNU, what the dangers are, how those dangers are connected to even geopolitical issues. So those kind of rules must be out there, but people don't obey rules if there's no kind of enforcement or stuff. So individual parties must deal with their own members, number one, and they must exercise their own sense of integrity testing and strictness in the rules. And it's not for us, it's for the next generation, the kids. Everybody knows the dangers that kids land in every time and the temptations they're subjected to, which are very different to what we went through. And sometimes geopolitical players would use criminality to make their initial moves. You wouldn't see it coming because you treat it as a crime. And yet it's part of a chessboard being played. So there's that one. There's a third one about the independent agency. And the fourth one is to look at, so municipal police, Metro Police. Metro Police was meant to be a force multiplier. That's what was done. Two things happened. One, it was done through SAPS Act, the Metro Police. And the SAPS Act took precedent over the other local government related legislations. The result is controlled by now, as it's done by Civilian Secretariat for legislation formulation. Whereas that's, in my view, my humble opinion, not being a jurist, is unconstitutional. It should be done here by the members of parliament, understanding the legislation and formulating here. So one of the key issues which everyone asks is because my organization, where I am not an official or major active member, we have an allergy to anything that sounds like it's moving towards federalism, even if it's not, because of the experiences of the past and division. Now, the other party in the GNU that controls the Western Cape has the opposite view. They go from a position of federalism. So there is almost an instinctive clash that comes, whereas we should leave the isms out and let's look at what works. So I'm talking about municipal police. So if municipal police was to be a force multiplier, why aren't municipal police properly trained with the right standard operating procedures, right prescripts, allowed to carry some dockets to take the pressure off SAPS? So that if there's a theft in a municipal building, you don't have to get a whole detective to come from, the big station and come in and investigate it. You'll get that member to do that. Already a lot of legal competencies have cascaded to Metro Police. Boarding vessels if there's suspected there are drugs on them. Domestic violence and emergency safe centers, public order policing issues. So part of what I was doing in my missing years from the CV was doing possible models to get that done. And one of the models